Hi everyone, welcome to week 2. I know that we haven't met really face to face for week 1. I apologize that my video wasn't working really very well the other night, and you may still have some questions about how this course is going to run and how the two courses work together. And I'm hoping that you'll email me if you do hit a spot where you don't understand something, especially from the instructions that are given on Blackboard. I'm wearing these glasses because I'm just old enough where reading off of a computer screen or reading in a written text is a little bit hard for me. So I apologize. I feel like I'm this geek out of the 50s, but in any case, I hope that we can cover some ground tonight that will set us up for success as the week goes on. And this is going to be a longer introduction video than I'll usually give. And, feel free to fast forward through it or do whatever you need to. I just wanted you to have a little contact with me before you take your first reading quiz. And that reading quiz has to happen by 11:59 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday night. So Wednesday, August 17th is the last day to take that quiz. Some of you may have done it already. Kudos to you. But the main thing is that you know that the readings in this class will be assessed. And it's important that you stay up with those scheduled readings. And as I've said in emails, it's about a chapter or a book per night, even in the weeks when we're not meeting for the core literature class in our virtual live sessions. Also in an email that I sent, hopefully you all got it, I kind of broke this class down to the Magnificent Seven. 7 components that make up the body of work that you are responsible for. And that's apart from our virtual live sessions on Thursday nights. So remember that that's something that's expected too, and you'll be graded for your participation. And, our hope is that you're an active participant, and I realize that technology sometimes gets in the way, but it was fun to see the chat active during our meeting the other night. And again, please come with your questions because I'm happy to talk. I would love to hear you talk during those sessions, so please come with the idea that this is a circle of friends, and we are here to support each other through some difficult material. And most of all, as Concordia University, we're here to experience God's power. And God comes to us in so many different ways. And He comes to us through His Word, but He also comes to us as we fellowship and as we talk about what we think of as the meaning of life. So, the Greeks, they had a very different understanding of the meaning of life. And in the Bible, and in particular in the New Testament, we kind of see those two worldviews. The worldview that we consider the Judeo-Christian worldview and the Greek worldview. And those two worldviews hit head on for some interesting stories in the New Testament narratives. Now, really quickly, I just kind of want to go over what's coming up this week. This week is really all about ancient literature and introducing ancient literature to each other. And so remember that you've had the Iliad as you're reading for these first 2 weeks, and you'll have it for the next couple of weeks as well. Know that basically you're supposed to be halfway through the book. And remember, this wasn't written down initially. It was oral literature. It was storytelling. And, the people who had the job of storytellers had a great deal of status, and they were kind of like the receivers of cultural memory, and they passed it on to others. Okay, so you have the books 1 through 12 in the Iliad. And remember, that's by Wednesday night, 11:59 p.m. that you have to, 11:59 p.m. before 12 a.m. and you have to take the quiz online. Please let me know if you're having any trouble whatsoever. Please let me know this weekend if possible, so at least get in, but don't start the quiz until you're ready. Remember that this is not an open note, open book quiz. This is something that is open memory. And Professor Zank the other day was pretty clear about our expectations, because integrity is what these courses are built on, and the idea that all of us as distance learners and distance instructors can count on one another, and you can count on us for feedback and for valuing your work and giving it the assessment, the evaluations that we feel in our professional judgment are appropriate. So please just hop on board and realize that there will always be ways to make up for a performance that you feel is substandard in your opinion, and know that it's hard for everybody. Okay, with that said, you've got the readings, and what I want to do is just kind of go through the list that I sent by email. And again, I call them the Magnificent Seven. You've got the course readings. You've got discussion board postings. And realize that the discussion board postings, it's expected that you show your participation through these. Don't be minimalistic, but on the other hand, don't go on and on and on and think that is the place where you have the most points at stake. It's just a checkup, and it's to create a classroom situation when we don't have a classroom to meet in all the time. So those discussion board postings are critical for us to get to know each other, for us to know how one another is thinking, and please contribute. And it's expected that you have well thought out ideas, and maybe even more important for my half the course or my course in this pair, you need to get into the text. It shouldn't just be your gut responses to those prompts, to the questions. Please make sure that you use the text. Just referring to things that happen is a good start, but we always like direct quotes where possible, so that people can actually go back to the text on their own and maybe find something that they didn't find before. So we're helping each other in that way. So, I encourage MLA format, which basically means that after a direct quote, you have parentheses and you just have a number. You don't need P or PAGE to reference the page, just the number. So the number will tell us what page we should be looking on. Okay, so course readings, discussion board postings. The third thing is the self-paced lessons, and this week, again, it's on different types of ancient literature, and it shouldn't take you too long, maybe 10, 15 minutes at most. It's a do-it-yourself module, and so we need you to do that, and when we come to class, it will be something that we'd expect you to be able to talk about a little bit. So that's number 3. Number 4 is the devotional readings, and even though this isn't a theology course, remember we're paired with the theology course, we want you to engage with the Bible tradition. And I think it will help you in the other course as you become more familiar. If you're not familiar, you'll become more familiar with how the Bible is laid out and the types of literature that are in the Bible. Obviously, Christians, Jews consider the Bible to be a holy book, but it's also literature. God works through human forms, and he passes ideas through our human forms of literature. So the devotional readings are optional in this course, but I really want to encourage you. Reading the Psalms is going to be a blessing for you. The reading quizzes I've already mentioned. It goes with the readings, of course, and I think you'll get the hang of it after the first time through. Make sure you do some studying, and as I said earlier, take notes while you read. And those don't have to be lengthy notes, but just make sure you know what's going on in the different portions of the book and who is doing what to whom, that kind of thing. The next one is very important, and I want want to share about it because you'll have a due date coming up. And these are the analysis assignments. The analysis assignments are short written assignments that basically are preparing you to write a longer paper, but they're just snapshots. And so what you're doing is called a close reading. And that means that you are looking at a short passage from the text. And in this case, it means, just 25 to 75 lines. Now, what's confusing in the instructions is that it mentions the Pilgrim's Progress. Remember, the Pilgrim's Progress is for later. You don't have to do anything with that right now. It's the Iliad that we're concerned with. And so it's 25 to 75 lines, and, you need to expand that. So 25 to 75 lines is probably 200 words, and you're looking to expand it to 300 to 500 words of analysis. Please don't just summarize. Talk about the things that it lists on Blackboard. Syntax, that's basically how sentences are made and how meaning is communicated through sentences. Sometimes you'll have sentences that are fragmentary, or sometimes you'll have sentences that are kind of a reverse word order because of the way that the Greeks wrote their literature. Look at verbs. Look at things that are happening with the words and the word choice. And so that goes to diction. Diction is the choice of words. And again, look at the verbs. Look for any figurative language that might be happening, and that's coming up in a second too. So imagery has to do with how the words appeal to your senses. What do you see, of course, but maybe you hear as the words are read on the page. You can actually hear because there are sound words that are being used. When words are put together in certain combinations, they have a certain effect. And so again, imagery appeals to the senses. Metaphors, and we include similes here. Similes and metaphors are very similar. Similes, usually in English, they have the word like, but honestly, just consider most everything a metaphor if it's comparing two things and trying to make a point through that comparison. Usually they're unusual comparisons. And so any other literary conventions, irony is probably my personal favorite. If you find irony, and that means that what's being said is a contradiction with your expectations. Okay, you'd expect this to be the case, but then this actually happens. Sometimes irony is when the reader knows something, but a character in the story doesn't know something. That's called dramatic irony. And, I just want to encourage you to use glossaries online. I'll try and have a couple of them, posted on Thursday night in our chat. I'll try and post links if possible that can help you through this. You're intending to unpack a short passage from anywhere in books 1 to 12. I would recommend that you try and find a passage that's like a paragraph where it kind of goes together. Don't just stop randomly after, 75 lines or whatever. So I hope that helps a little bit. And if you do have questions, I'll try and communicate with you and probably forward the email to the class if I think it's a point that needs to be expanded on. Remember, the due date for that is this Friday. Again, it's 11:59 p.m. You have to submit that. And the important thing is that you don't delay. Now, if you have any trouble submitting on Blackboard, let me know. A lot of you have taken courses already, and so you're familiar with that. Basically, there's a filter. When you submit written work, it's going to go through a filter. And that filter is going to see if you plagiarized. And I'm certain that you won't. And what that means is when you take ideas from the internet and they're not yours and you're just kind of copying and pasting, or if you have ideas that are very close to someone else's ideas and you didn't give credit for where you got the idea. Now, just know it's pretty obvious when you come up with your own ideas. Think outside the box. There is nothing wrong with thinking outside the box, especially for this kind of an assignment, because we call this formative assessment. It's trying to lead you toward a bigger paper and kind of train us all in the habits of good professional college level writing. Okay, so the passage analysis is an important part of what we do in this course. Finally, your culminating paper, it will be introduced to you further this Thursday, and I know that Professor Zank talked about it a little bit, and he was talking about metaphors, because the deal is that you have certain words, certain ideas that are introduced in ancient literature, and then those ideas change over time. And specifically, this paper wants you to look at how Jesus Christ changed the meaning of those ancient concepts. And these words are things like light, food, bread, water, slavery, freedom. These are things that we say they are archetypes. They are patterns for the way we live. They are the things that we think about on a day-to-day basis. At least they're under the surface. And so you'll have papers. There are documents. They're posted in your Week 2 folder on your theology course. And I will make sure that you have those documents as well. And we'll go over them this Thursday night to make sure that you're very clear on what's expected of you. Now, for this week, this is due it's due on Saturday, August 20th, so it's due after our class, so you don't have to panic if you're not understanding it. But the idea here is that you're developing a thesis, and a thesis is not one word. A thesis is a statement about that one word. So if your topic, if your archetype word is water, you have to explain in your thesis what is happening with water. What was the meaning of that word back in ancient times based on the literature that you're reading? And water is mentioned repeatedly. Think bodies of water and all kinds of associations. But think of what water means to people. Again, one like warfare is pretty big. Basically, you're going to have to choose from that list that's given on Blackboard. And you can look at the theology folder again to find that document. But what you have to do is take that word and turn it into a complete sentence that's basically a proposition. It's a statement of opinion about the topic, that it's an assertion that you're going to support with your whole paper. So it's very important that you find something you enjoy, something that's interesting to you. And I will be meeting with each of you next week. I'm going to post a schedule for advising, and I am flexible as long as we can do it in the evening. I do have a day job, and so I'm hoping that you will do that you'll be able to sign up for a slot and we can meet. It doesn't have to be a long meeting, maybe even 10 minutes, just to make sure you understand that you can ask individual questions. It's one of the few times that we actually have contact with one another one-to-one. So remember that thesis, that's that tentative working thesis. So it can be changed later, but that's due on Saturday, August 20th at 11:59 p.m. Now, I want to go back to the analysis assignment. One thing that I didn't mention is after your analysis, you should have a thesis statement. So basically what you are kind of practicing here is what might happen in an introductory portion of a long essay. You might have an explanation of various examples of language and imagery, and then at the end of that, you need to have a thesis statement. So that should be the very last sentence. Your thesis statement should basically be a summary, but it should lead to further exploration. It shouldn't just be the last word. Okay? So again, you have in that short analysis assignment, you have analysis, and then at the very end, you're going to have your thesis. So it culminates in a thesis statement. It's a little bit backwards from what we sometimes think, that you start out with the thesis and then you have analysis. So again, what they're modeling is kind of an introduction to a longer paper. That's my understanding. Okay, I am going to stop this video, and I'm going to use another video to talk to you about the Iliad, books 1 through 12. And in this 20-minute video, I hope it's been worthwhile. Thanks.